It rained last night. Hard, the way Maine rain gets in October. Steady and cold and purposeful, like it's trying to say something. I was up a little before 5, the way I usually am, and I stood at the kitchen window in the dark and watched it come down in the glow of the porch light. The cedars were dripping. The yard was dark. The fire wasn't going yet. I made my coffee. I sat at the table, and I thought about something that happened earlier in the week that I've been turning over since. My neighbor, a decent woman, Mrs. Elaine, lives about 4 houses down. She stopped me on the road to ask if I was all right. I'd seen her twice that week without stopping to talk, and she'd noticed. She said, "Walter, you seemed quieter than usual." And I said, "Elaine, I'm always quiet." And she laughed a little, and I said, "I've just been keeping to myself this week. Needed a few days without much company." And then something happened that surprised me. I heard myself start to apologize. I heard myself start to say, "I'm sorry, Elaine. It's not you, it's just—" And I stopped, in the middle of the sentence, because I realized I wasn't sorry. I hadn't done anything wrong. I needed quiet. I took quiet. That's not an offense. That's a life. I'm 82 years old. My name is Walter. And that small moment on the road with Elaine got me thinking about all the things I used to apologize for that I don't apologize for anymore. Things I spent years being quietly ashamed of or performing regret about because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. Because I thought the decent thing was to be sorry for taking up space in the ways that were natural to me. I've stopped doing that. Not all at once, slowly, the way most things change in an old man's life. Not with a decision, but with a gradual letting go, like a hand that's been holding something tight for 40 years finally, one day, just opens. Today I want to share 9 of those things with you. 9 things I stopped apologizing for. Not because I've stopped caring about other people. I haven't. Not because I think I'm always right. I don't. But because I've learned, at 82, the difference between a genuine wrong that deserves an apology and a genuine way of being that deserves nothing but to be left in peace. Sit with me a while. The fire's going. The rain has stopped. Here's what I've learned. The first thing I stopped apologizing for is needing quiet. I've been a quiet man my whole life. Not shy. I could talk to anybody on a job site, price a job, negotiate with a supplier, explain to a homeowner what their house needed and why. I'm not a man who had trouble finding words when I needed them, but I've always needed also long stretches of quiet. Days when I didn't want to talk to anyone. Evenings when Helen and I would sit in the same room without speaking for an hour, and I'd be genuinely, completely content. Weekends when I'd be in the shop alone from morning to afternoon, radio off, just the sound of the tools and the wood and the cold outside. Helen understood this. She had a word for it, which she'd borrowed from somewhere. She called it Walter recharging. When the children were small and they'd ask where I was and why I wasn't coming to the table yet, she'd say, "Your father is recharging. Like a battery. He'll be back." But outside the house, I spent a lot of years apologizing for it. At family gatherings, I'd apologize for going quiet at dinner. At neighborhood events, I'd apologize for leaving early. When David's children were small and they'd come to visit, and after a few hours I'd feel the need to go sit in my chair for a while, I'd apologize to Karen, David's wife, for not being more engaged. I'm not sure why I kept apologizing for something that was simply how I was made. Maybe because the world treats quiet people as problems to be solved. Maybe because silence in a room makes some people uncomfortable, and I'd take responsibility for their discomfort without questioning whether it was mine to take. But here's what I know now. My quiet is not rudeness. It's not depression. It's not indifference to the people I love. It's the way I process the world. It's the way I gather myself back together after spending myself in company. And a man at 82 who has learned how much quiet he needs is a man who knows something real about himself. I don't apologize for it anymore. When Elaine asked, I just told her, I've been keeping to myself this week. She nodded. She understood. Most people understand if you just tell them plainly instead of apologizing. The second thing I stopped apologizing for is moving slowly. The body changes. I've talked about that before in other conversations. But I want to be specific today about the thing I used to be most ashamed of, which was the pace of my body. I was a fast worker for most of my career. Harold used to joke that I moved like I was late for something. 45 years in the trade, I kept a pace I was proud of. And then I turned 70. And then 75. And the pace changed. The stairs take longer. The path from the house to the shop takes longer. Getting up from the chair takes longer. Everything has a little more friction to it now, the way an old plane needs more pressure than a new one. For a few years, I was embarrassed by it, not by the slowness itself. I'm not a vain man, I think, but by the effect it had on other people. When David comes to visit and I'm moving slow, I can see him calibrating, watching to see if I'm worse than last time. When I'm at the hardware store and the young man behind the counter is waiting for me to count out my bills and I'm taking longer than he'd like, I used to hurry in a way that made my hands shake, hurrying to show him I was still capable, hurrying to apologize, in effect, for the time I was taking. I don't do that anymore. I take the time I need. My hands move at the speed they move. If someone is waiting, they can wait. I'm 82 years old, and I've been moving through this world for a long time, and the extra 30 seconds I need to find the right bill is not a crime against the young man's afternoon. Helen had a phrase she used toward the end of her life when her illness was slowing her down and she was frustrated by it. She'd say, "The body knows the right pace. I'm learning to listen to it." She was better at that than I was. She accepted the slowness with more grace than I've managed. But I'm learning. I'm getting there. Move at the pace your body moves. That's not laziness. That's wisdom. The third thing I stopped apologizing for is the way I show love. I am not a demonstrative man. I don't hug easily. I don't say I love you frequently, though I say it more now than I did at 50. I don't write long emotional letters or call to say I was thinking about you. My way of loving people is to show up, to do things for them, to fix what's broken in their house, to make something with my hands that they'll have after I'm gone, to answer the phone when they call, even if I wasn't expecting to talk, to remember the things they've told me and ask about them later. For many years, I felt like this was not enough, like the way I loved was insufficient compared to the way other people loved. Helen cried at movies. Helen wrote letters to people who were struggling. Helen would hold a grandchild on her lap for an hour and sing to them. She had a warmth that came out naturally, that didn't cost her anything to give. Mine came out sideways, through a fixed step, through a chair I'd built for Susan's kitchen, through a drive I'd taken in the dark to pick someone up from somewhere. I spent years feeling guilty about the gap between Helen's way and my way, feeling like my children deserved better than a father whose love came out through a workbench instead of through words. But here's what I've come to understand at 82. When David's marriage was struggling in 2004 and he called me from a parking lot in Portland, crying, I drove down. I didn't send a card. I didn't call to say, I love you and I'm thinking about you. I drove. And I sat with him for 3 hours in a diner. And I told him things I'd never told anyone about my own marriage and the years it was hard. And he needed that. Not the words on a card. The man in the diner. When the Sullivans' back porch was rotting and they didn't know it, I walked over and told them. I spent 3 Saturdays rebuilding it with them. That's love. That's the only shape it comes in for me. And I've stopped apologizing for the shape. Your love has a shape. Maybe it's different from other people's. Maybe it doesn't look the way the world says love is supposed to look. That doesn't make it less. It makes it yours. I want to tell you something that took me a long time to understand. Helen and I had a moment, maybe in the mid-90s, when the children were grown and the house was quiet again. We were having one of our evening conversations at the kitchen table. Nothing dramatic, just the two of us after supper with the dishes done. And she said something that I've turned over many times since. She said, "Walter, do you know what I've always loved most about the way you love me?" I said, "No." And I meant it. I genuinely didn't know. She said, "You show up, no matter what. You showed up when my mother was sick and I needed someone to drive me to the hospital 3 times a week. You showed up when the roof was leaking and I was worried about the damage. You showed up the night my sister called with the worst news and I needed someone in the room. You always show up, and I've never once had to wonder if you would." That sat in me for a long time, because showing up was something I'd done so naturally I'd never thought of it as love. It was just what you did. The person needed something, you were there. The thing needed doing, you did it. I'd never put the word love on it. She had. And what I understood sitting at that table was that all those years I'd been apologizing for not loving like her, for not having her words or her warmth or her easy affection. I'd been apologizing for something that she had never, not once, experienced as a deficit. Because she'd been watching what I was actually doing, and she'd called it what it was. That conversation is one of the things I have left. On the hard days I bring it out and I hold it. And I am not sorry any longer for the shape my love comes in. This one I held on to longest, I think, and it's the strangest one to admit to, because nobody ever asked me to apologize for being old. The world just made me feel like I should. It starts small. You notice people speaking to you a little louder than necessary, like age might have dimmed your hearing. You notice the way a young person's eyes drift when you're in the middle of a sentence about something that happened in 1974. You notice that stores arrange themselves for people whose bodies move easily, and when yours doesn't, you're in the way. You start making little pre-apologies. I know this might take a minute. Whenever you're about to do something that a younger body would do faster. And before long, the apology is in you. A low-level, constant apology for taking up space in a body that's lived too long for the world's patience. I carried that for years. I'm not sure I noticed it was there until about 3 years ago, when Lily, my granddaughter, the one in college, came up for a long weekend. She was studying something to do with history, and on the second evening, after supper, she asked me to tell her about my grandfather, her great-great-grandfather, a man who'd come over from Quebec in the early part of last century and worked in the paper mills. And I talked for 2 hours. I told her everything I knew, the stories my mother had told me, the things I half remembered from when I was very young, the photographs I still had in a box in the bedroom. And Lily sat there and she listened the way young people almost never listen, which is with their whole body, not waiting for me to finish, actually in it with me. When I finally stopped, she said, Grampy, I could listen to you for another 2 hours. You're a library that's still open. A library that's still open. That's what she said. I sat with that for a long time after she went to bed. I thought about all the years I'd made myself smaller around younger people, all the pre-apologies, all the times I'd waved away my own stories with something like, "You don't want to hear about that. That was a long time ago." As if age made me less relevant, as if the years were something to be embarrassed about rather than carried with quiet pride. They're mine, these years, 82 of them. What's in them belongs to me and to the people I share them with, and I'm not sorry for any of them. Not even the hard ones, especially not the hard ones. The fifth thing I stopped apologizing for is having opinions. I've held back my opinions for most of my life. Not always, but more than I should have. I'd have a view on something, a job, a decision one of the children was making, something going on in the town or the country, and I'd feel it forming in me, and then I'd think about whether it was welcome, whether it was my place, whether anyone had asked. And often I'd let it go. I'd redirect. I'd say something neutral. I'd hold the opinion like a chip of wood I'd decided not to use, and I'd put it down somewhere and move on. Part of it was what I'd been taught. Men of my father's time in class didn't push their opinions into rooms where they hadn't been asked. They said their piece when the time was right and kept quiet otherwise. That was respect in the code I'd grown up with. But part of it was something less admirable, a kind of fear, the fear of being disagreed with, the fear of seeming out of touch or old-fashioned, or the kind of man who makes the room uncomfortable. I'd rather be quiet and acceptable than specific and wrong. Helen didn't have that fear. She had opinions the way she had her garden, tended, particular, unapologetically hers. She'd say at the dinner table, "Here's what I think about that," and then she'd say it, not loudly, not angrily, just directly, with the confidence of a woman who'd thought about things and arrived at views and wasn't going to pretend she hadn't. I admired it. I loved it in her. I had trouble doing it myself. I'm better at it now, not entirely free of the old reflex. I still feel the pull to soften, to hedge, to leave the door open for retreat. But I'm better. When someone asks me what I think, I tell them. When something is said at the table that I don't agree with, I say so, gently, without drama. And I don't apologize for having the view. I just have it and state it and let the conversation go where it goes. An 82-year-old man who's thought about things for 82 years has a right to his opinions. He doesn't have to push them on anyone, but he doesn't have to hide them either. The sixth thing I stopped apologizing for is choosing not to explain myself. There's a particular kind of pressure when you do something outside the ordinary to explain why, to give a reason, to justify the choice to whoever might be observing it. I drove to Cape Breton alone when I was 79, 3 years ago. Nobody in my immediate family knew quite what to make of it. David called while I was there and asked, a little carefully, if I was all right, if I was sure I should be driving that far alone. I said, "Yes, I'm all right, I'm sure." He said, "Okay, Pop, call me when you get there each night." And I said I would, and I did. But I didn't explain it to him. I didn't say it was for Helen, that I was going to the place she'd always wanted to see, that I needed to sit on the shore of the Brador Lake and say the things I should have said to her when she was alive. I didn't explain any of that. Because it was mine. Because some things you do aren't for explaining. They're for doing, in the particular way you need to do them, for reasons that live in you, and don't need to be packaged into language for someone else's understanding. I've spent a lot of years feeling like I owed people explanations for choices that were entirely my own. The choice to stay in the shop an extra hour after dark. The choice to skip a family gathering one year because I needed to be alone that weekend. The choice to turn down a job that would have paid well because something about the customer made me uneasy. Every choice that deviated from the expected, I'd preemptively justify, as if my choices were proposals that required approval. They're not. My life is mine. The choices I make within it, the quiet ones, the strange ones, the ones that don't make obvious sense to the people watching, those are mine too. I owe decent behavior to the people I love. I owe honesty when honesty is asked for. I don't owe explanations for the interior of my own life. The seventh thing I stopped apologizing for is grieving in my own way and on my own timeline. After Helen died, there was an informal period of time during which I was understood to be grieving. People were kind. People came by. People called. People said the right things in the right voices. For about a year, the grief was accepted and even expected and held by the people around me. And then, gently, almost imperceptibly, the expectation shifted. Not in any cruel way. People still cared. But there was a new low hum in the air when I talked about Helen, a slight shift in the room's posture, a careful gentleness that hadn't been there before, that communicated something like, "We thought you'd be further along by now." I wasn't further along. I am not, at 82, entirely along. I still talk to Helen. I still take her sweater out of the cedar chest, sometimes in February. I still sometimes set 2 cups on the table before I remember. 7 years is not enough to finish grieving 54 years, and for a while I felt guilty about that. Like my grief was too large, like I was making people uncomfortable by still having it. Like the proper thing would have been to move through it on a reasonable schedule and arrive at a settled, peaceable acceptance that other people could be around without worrying. I've stopped feeling guilty about it. The grief is mine. It lives in me at its own pace, in its own way. I didn't choose the size of what Helen was to me. I didn't choose the shape of the hole she left. I'm not going to apologize for either of those things. There's no timeline on grief. There's no right pace. There's no correct way to carry a loss. And anyone who makes you feel like there is has either never lost something they truly loved, or they've lost it and haven't looked at it honestly. Grieve what you've lost, on your own schedule, in your own way, without apology. I want to be specific about something because I think it matters. The people who made me feel like I should be further along, they weren't bad people. Most of them were people who loved me and were uncomfortable watching me hurt. Discomfort with another person's grief is one of the most common things I've observed in my 82 years. It's not cruelty, it's helplessness. People don't know what to do with grief that doesn't resolve. They want to help and they can't help, so they push, gently, toward the version of you that doesn't need helping anymore. I understand that now. I didn't for a while. For a while, I took the gentle pressure personally. I felt like I was failing some test of recovery that people had expected me to pass. But I've come to think that the truest thing I can say about grief is that it changes shape, but it doesn't end. Not if what you lost was genuinely the center of something. Helen was the center of my life for 54 years. She knew me better than I knew myself. She held the parts of me I couldn't hold alone. When she died, I didn't just lose a person. I lost the person who made me most fully a person. That kind of loss doesn't have an end. It has an accommodation. It becomes something you carry rather than something that carries you. It changes from a weight that knocks you down to a weight you walk with. But it's still there. 7 years later, still there. And I am done apologizing for it. If you are grieving someone and people are asking you, in their gentle ways, whether you're feeling better yet, you don't have to perform the recovery they're hoping for. You can be honest. You can say, I'm still in it. I'm carrying it. That's where I am. The people who can hear that will stay. The ones who can't will step back a little, and you can love them from a slight distance, and you don't have to pretend for them. At 82, people sometimes ask me if I have regrets about my life, my career, the choices I made. And the honest answer is, I have some, but not the ones people seem to expect. I don't regret the years I worked long hours. The work was honest. It fed the family. It built things that are still standing. I'm proud of it. I don't regret staying in Maine my whole life. People sometimes frame it as limitation. Didn't you ever want to go somewhere else? See more of the world? I saw the ocean from the coast of Maine. I saw the seasons change in the same woods for 50 years and found something different in them every time. That's not smallness. That's depth. I don't regret building my own house instead of buying something already made. I don't regret the 45 years in the trades. I don't regret the choices I made about money. Careful choices, conservative choices, nothing flashy. The house is paid for. I have enough. I sleep without financial fear. Those choices cost me some things, and I don't regret them. But for a long time, I'd perform a kind of conventional regret when people asked. I'd say things like, "Oh, I suppose I should have traveled more," or "I wish I'd been less of a workaholic when the children were young," saying the things that sounded like the right answers. The humble, expected regrets of a man who should have known better. And most of those things had some truth in them. I do wish I'd been more present when the children were small. That's real. But I was performing a broader regret that I didn't actually feel, because the regret seemed like what was asked of me. I stopped doing that. If I have a regret, I'll tell you the real one. The Nova Scotia trip I never took with Helen, that's real. The night I came home at midnight on Christmas Eve in 1983, that's real. Missing David's graduation, that's real. Those are mine, and they're true. But I'm not going to manufacture regret about a life that, on balance, was a good life. The staying, the building, the working, the 45 years with the wood and the cold and the smell of sawdust. I'm not sorry for those. I'm grateful. The ninth thing, and I've saved this one because it's the one that sat heaviest on me for the longest time, is the ninth thing I stopped apologizing for, which is this. I stopped apologizing for still being here. This one is hard to explain, but I'll try. When Helen died, and when I started losing the men I'd grown up with, Bob at 78, Frank a few years before that, Harold years before that, I started to feel a strange kind of guilt for being the one still living. I was older than some of them. My body was failing in its own ways, and yet there I was, still getting up in the morning, still making coffee, still going to the shop. There's a particular loneliness in outliving the people who knew you when you were young. And mixed in with that loneliness, for me, was a guilt I didn't know how to name for a long time. Like I was taking up space that should have gone to Helen, or Bob, or Frank. Like survival was a kind of imposition. Like I owed someone an apology for being the one left. I don't believe that. I don't believe it now, though it took me years to stop believing it. Being alive is not something you owe an apology for. Being old is not something you owe an apology for. Taking up space, taking up time, continuing to breathe and think and remember and sit by the fire in the dark. These are not offenses. They are the thing itself. The living. The only thing, in the end, that any of us were asked to do. I think about Helen when I feel the old guilt starting up. I think about what she would say to me if she knew I'd spent years feeling like I should apologize for still being here. She'd hold my face in her hands the way she used to, and she'd say, "Walter, you are not sorry for this. You are not sorry for being alive. She'd be right. She was right about most things. I'm not sorry. And I want to add something to this because I've been sitting with it for a few years now, and I think it's worth saying. There's a particular gift that comes with being the one who's still here, even though it doesn't always feel like a gift. The gift is memory. I remember things that nobody else alive can remember. I remember what Helen's voice sounded like when she was 32 years old, before the years changed it into something slightly different. I remember the particular way my father held a tool, the way he moved through a room. I remember what Bangor smelled like in the summer of 1965. I remember conversations that had no witnesses. I remember the faces of people who've been gone for decades, in the exact expression they wore when I last saw them happy. None of that dies when they die. It lives in me. It will live in me until I can't hold it anymore. And then it will pass. Some of it to my children. Some of it in the letters I've written to my grandchildren. Some of it in conversations like this one, to whoever is sitting with me on the other side of a screen, a stranger I'll never meet, who might carry a piece of it forward in their own way. That's the work of being the one still here, not just enduring, remembering, carrying, passing on, being the living archive of the people who can no longer speak for themselves. I don't take that lightly, and I'm not sorry for it. It's the one thing the years have given me that the years can't take back. The rain has started again outside, light now, just a whisper against the kitchen window. I want to say something before I close because I'm aware that a list like this one, 9 things I stopped apologizing for, can sound, if you're not careful, like the talk of a man who stopped caring what other people think, who stopped being accountable, who stopped taking responsibility. That's not what I mean, and that's not who I've become. There are things I still owe apologies for, and I try to give them. When I'm short with someone who didn't deserve it, which still happens some days when the cold is bad and the thumb aches and February has gone on too long, I apologize. When I let someone down, really let them down, failed a real expectation I'd agreed to, I say so. When I get something wrong in a way that costs someone something, I own it. Accountability matters. Genuine apology, when genuinely owed, is one of the most important things one person can give another. I haven't stopped believing that. What I've stopped doing is apologizing for the texture of who I am, for the shape of my needs, for the pace of my body, for the way my love comes out, for the years on my face, for the grief that still lives in me, for the life I chose and mostly don't regret, for the fact that I woke up this morning and made my coffee and watched the rain on the cedars and am still at 82 here. Those things don't need an apology. They need to be allowed. They need to be set down gently, without the weight of a performance of shame they never deserved. And that, just that, is what I mean when I say I stopped apologizing for them. I don't know what your list looks like. I don't know what you've been apologizing for that you shouldn't be. But I'd guess there's something. Most people have something they've been carrying quietly. Some version of themselves they've been treating like a problem instead of a person. If you know what that thing is for you, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell anyone. But maybe, in the quiet of your own day, you can try putting it down. Just for today. Just to see how it feels to not be sorry for it. I think you might be surprised. If anything I said tonight reached you, you can subscribe to walk with me a while longer. I read the comments. Tell me what you stopped apologizing for, or what you're still working on putting down. I'd like to know. Take care of yourself. Give an apology where one is genuinely owed, and nowhere else. The fire's still going. I'll see you next time.